We've all seen the horrible portrayals of opioid, painkiller, and heroin addiction overdose on the news, even. You've seen the pictures of the two grown-ups unresponsive in the SUV while a 4-year-old waits in the back seat. We've seen the video of the young mother passed out on the floor of the dollar store while her baby desperately tries to wake her. On the other end of the spectrum, our prisons are severely overcrowded due to the mass incarceration of nonviolent drug offenders, and its overpopulation is causing no room for the violent criminals. That's why I'm suggesting a change in policy. The United States should legalize medicinal marijuana and decriminalize its use in an effort to relieve the current opioid addiction epidemic and lessen our prison overcrowding. Addiction, abuse, and overdose of opiate-based drugs is at an all-time high. Most overdoses are from opiate-based painkillers. Alice Park wrote an article in 2016 in Time magazine stating that more people died of drug overdoses in 2014 than any other year, and 60% of these overdoses were at the hands of painkillers. Prescription opioid drug addiction has been associated with heroin use. Doctors Deborah Danowitz and Joseph wrote in 2016 in an article titled Heroin Use and stated that individuals addicted to prescription opioid drugs are 40 times more likely to be addicted to heroin. They also wrote in the same article published in the Journal of Psychosocial Nursing and Mental Health Services that heroin users have cited reasons for switching from painkillers to heroin, including accessibility and price. This is because the prescription runs out, and so they have nowhere else to turn because they're addicted. So they go to the streets and they find illegal drugs that will do the same thing. Highly addictive pain pills are overprescribed. Dr. Deborah wrote in 2016 in her article published in the Journal of Psychosocial Nursing and Mental Health Services that over the past 2 decades, prescription opioid drug availability and use has increased in the United States. Americans consume 86% of the world's opioids. This is because it is a highly lucrative business which they can supposedly control. When the opioid prescriptions are up, heroin use is low, and when the opioid prescriptions are down, heroin use is high. The federal prison system is overcrowded due to overprosecution of nonviolent drug offenses. The war on drugs, which was started in the late 70s, is responsible for the overcrowding of our prisons. Nick Pinto wrote in 2015 an article titled, Why Can't We End Mass Incarceration? And reported that Congress created mandatory minimum penalties in order to standardize punishments, and the prison population then swelled from 24,000 prisoners in 1980 to over 219,000 in 2013. He also wrote in his article published in the Rolling Stone that nearly half of federal inmates are serving time for drug offenses. 60% of those inmates were subject to mandatory minimums when they were sentenced. The lack of rehab from overcrowding in our prison systems and lengthy sentences results in recidivism and revocation of parole. Recidivism is a repeat offense, either a new charge or a repeat of an existing charge or absconding. Drs. Ruderman, Wilson, and Reed wrote in 2015 an article titled Does Prison Crowding Predict Higher Rates of Substance Use? That crowding overextends prison resources needed to provide drug rehabilitation services, and the lack of access to this treatment is a known risk for drug and substance use disorders. They also wrote in their article published in the Public Library of Science that longer sentences lead to less successful reintegration into society. This is due to the overcrowding, which causes social stress within the prisons. This induces violence and more illegal drug use inside the walls because there's no treatment. They can't get help. Addiction's a disease, and they can't get better if it's not treated. In conclusion, the overprescription of highly addictive painkillers causes high rates of abuse and overdose. The high rates of prosecution and lack of rehabilitation for drug offenders causes overcrowding in our prison systems. Something has got to give. There's got to be an alternative for medicine and an alternative for our criminal justice system. That's why I propose that the United States legalize medicinal marijuana and decriminalize its use in an effort to relieve the current opioid addiction epidemic and lessen the prison population overcrowding.